Hey guys, in this video we're going to take a look at a simple way of finding a regression line for a set of data. So let's say that I have data that I want to find an association between the pressure in atmospheres of gas and the volume that the gas takes up. So let's say I have the two columns of data. I have volume is in centimeters cubed and I have pressure in ATM. And I'm just going to put some data down. You guys can adjust this to your own data, but for this I'm going to have 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, and 20 as my volumes. And then my associated pressures are going to be 2.9589, 2.4073, 1.9905, 1.7249, 1.5288, 1.3490, 1.2223, and 1.1201. So now that we have this data, we want to perform a regression analysis. Essentially, we want to plot the best line of fit for this data just to evaluate the correlation between the two categories. So what we can do is we can select our data here, and then in the menu bar at the top, you're going to click Insert, and then you're going to select Chart. And once you have this in the side, if you don't automatically get a scatter plot, then under chart type, you want to select this drop-down menu and you want to select the one that has dots on it. So that may not appear on suggested at first, but if you scroll down to the bottom, there should be under scatter plot, a plot that has a bunch of dots on it. So you can just select that one. So once we have our scatter plot, it should look something like this. You have a bunch of dots on a Cartesian plane. And notice that we have our label for the x-axis, which is the volume in centimeters cubed. And we have the label for a y-axis, which is the pressure in ATM. And you can customize these however you want if you go to Customize and you select Chart and Axis Title. And you can select the axis that you want to change the title of. So for example, if I select Horizontal Axis Title, that's going to change the x-axis title. And I can set this to whatever I want. But whatever's here right now, I like. So let's continue with this. So now that we have this data, I'm just going to move this up. We want to actually find that line of best fit, and that's what we call the regression line. So the way we can do this is we'll select series under customize, and we can check off this box here that says trend line. That's going to show us our line of best fit. So we check that off, and now we see this line that shows up here. So there's actually different types of regression that you can do here. You can do a linear regression, you can do exponential, you can do polynomial, and there's so many more that you can actually do. And so we're just going to stick with linear just because that's the simplest. Now once we have linear, let's say we want to actually find the equation that best represents this line of best fit. Well, so there's two things that we want to show. We first want to enable this r squared value, and we'll talk about that afterwards. And then under label, where it says custom, you want to select this dropdown and select use equation. And notice at the top of this chart, you're going to see a new equation show up. That is negative 0.125. times x plus 3.41. So what exactly does that mean? Well, this negative 0.125 is our slope. So for every increase in volume of centimeter cubed, we're going to decrease our pressure in atmospheres by 0.125. And then the 3.14 here represents our constant. So if we have a volume of 0 centimeters cubed, then our pressure is going to be around 3.41. And this just estimates it because this is a line of best fit. Now, what is this r squared value and why did we want it? This r squared value represents our correlation coefficient squared. And it's important to have this because it shows how linear our data appears to be. So right now, this line of best fit, it has a pretty good linear correlation because if we have a 0.922 value, or if we have any value where its absolute value is very close to 1, then it's going to be a pretty good line of fit. Whereas if we had an r squared value that's like 0.2 or 0.1, then we know that we don't really have a good linear correlation. So we might want to look at maybe some other form of regression or maybe no regression whatsoever. So for the purposes of this video, we can just stick with the data we have here. The r squared coefficient tells us that we have some pretty good linear data. And that's essentially it for this tutorial. You have your regression line and you can do whatever you need to with in terms of predicting other values with your equation in future scenarios. And that's it for this video. I hope this was helpful.